is about a unique person, a musician whose challenging mission has always been not only to bring people into a beautiful and harmonious world of music, but also to bring this beauty and harmony into everyday life. This film is about a genius teacher whose gift is to discover and develop the talent in each of her students, to enhance her students' lives while allowing them to be free and creative in everything they do. It's about a teacher whose students, having performed and taught all over the world, always come back when they crave her love and wisdom. It's about a music therapist whose tremendous achievement is that she has enriched the lives of those who once may have seemed hopeless, proving that what may seem impossible is possible. This film is about creativity and its development. It's about the ways in which friendship and love can inspire music making. This film is about Irina Orlov. The name of a city which you see now no longer exists. It was once called Leningrad. It was the second biggest city in the country, which no longer exists either, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, or simply Soviet Union. People whom you see walking along the streets had something in common. Something which does not exist anymore. They were the Soviet people. Their life was strange and somewhat spooky. What they were thinking was not what they were saying. What they were saying was not what they were doing. They lived under the pressure of Soviet ideology, constant brainwashing. According to official propaganda, they lived happily in the best country of the world. Many of these people believed everything they heard on the radio, saw on TV, or read in the newspapers. I was a freshman at a music college. A few of my new friends spoke enthusiastically about a music teacher with whom they had previously studied. To my amazement, they referred to her by her first name only, Irina, omitting the paternal name, as if they were talking about a very close friend, or as if they belonged to some secret society and Irina was the name of their president. Once upon a time, one of my friends brought me to meet this enigmatic person. A young, beautiful woman opened the door and led us into her small apartment. The way she looked, talked, smiled, the wonderful atmosphere she created immediately upon our arrival. That natural atmosphere could perhaps be described as noble simplicity. She was so different from the majority of people I had met before. I will never forget the striking impression she left. Although I could not at the time find the right words to define it, I felt that I understood the most remarkable thing about her. She was a free human being.
Irina has always had very strong personality, and she always been honest and straightforward. Also having big heart, she stood up for the truth and against any unfairness. It wasn't safe to behave like that in Soviet Union.
Irina emigrated to Israel in May of 1980, and I did not see her again for a long, long time, until the winter of 1997, when she came to Boston from Washington, D.C. with her students, participants in the first international festival, Young virtuosos. Her students' performances were so impressive that nobody was surprised when all of them were selected as the finalists of the festival and were entitled to play at Carnegie Hall. I remember the playing of one of Irena's students, Sam Post. After his stunning performance at Carnegie Hall, he was one of the few chosen finalists who traveled to Russia and performed in the Gnesen Music Academy, representing the best American young pianists taught by Russian teachers.
Сэм Пост, Соединенные Штаты Америки.
I was not surprised when I learned that Irena has become one of the most popular and successful teachers in the Levine School of Music in Washington, D.C. This is where I heard Sam Post playing again, in May of 2006, when he paid a tribute to his teacher by joining Irena's students in a studio recital. Another student of Irena, whom I remember since 1997, is Teddy Neiman.
When I started studying with Irena, I'd already been playing the piano for about 6 years. But Irena was the first teacher who captured my imagination, who made me listen and think about what she said and what I was doing at the piano. She was the first teacher who managed to really teach me. When I was that age, I was a combination of being fiercely independent and very shy at the same time. So while I had my own definite ideas about what I wanted, I was very reluctant to express myself. And I think it's a testimony to Irena's incredible skill as a teacher and as a human being that she managed to bring me out of my shell, intuit and learn what I wanted to express in my music and help me express that both in my music and in my life in general.
Now, Many years later, we're sitting again across from each other, and again I'm enjoying her conversation. And my first question to Irena is about the beginning of her teaching experience. How did it start?
How did it start? It started when I was a student at music school with a teacher that I was studied for 10 years. I was about 14 and a half maybe. So she asked me to help her young student with some piece. And she left us in a classroom. And when she came back, I said, you know what? I just understood that I want to do it all my life. She said, okay, it's good. And for my 15th birthday, she gave me a present, a student to work with. So that's how it started and never stopped.
I remember the first time I met Irena. It happened many years ago during the piano pedagogy exam at the music college affiliated with St. Petersburg Conservatory, where I served as a teacher, piano pedagogy teacher. She entered the room very young, very small, very energetic, with twinkling eyes. And she presented her ideas in such a unique and strong and creative way that I told my colleagues, pay attention to this girl. She's a genius teacher.
From the very beginning of her career, Irena has worked on the realization of her goal, the development of creative abilities in her students. This encompasses more than just playing the piano. Creativity, she believes, is more important than anything else in art and in life.
I remember quite clearly the first time Irena Orlov came to the Levine School of Music. She had called and said that she was interested in teaching at the school. When she arrived, the door opened and in walked this small, dynamic bundle of energy, full of emanating fire and determination. I think she played something for me. I believe I asked people who wanted to teach to play something. I don't remember the playing, but I remember so vividly what she said to me. So many teachers who came or wanted to come to the school would announce, but I only want to teach the talented students, the gifted students. Irena said to me, I will teach anybody. I knew then that this was someone who was quite special.
I think that by working with untalented people, by whatever means Irena was able to invent, she not only unlocked their musical talents, but their talents as human personalities. And I think if there were tests to show that, they would show that they progressed not only in music but also in other areas of their activities or studies. And the secret, I think, was that Irena has a very unique ability to see through the external surface of a person, deep inside its personality structure, and to understand what this personality structure has as its potentials. So she approaches everyone in his or her own terms, on his or her own turf, so to say. And the ability to find this sprout, which can be nurtured and grow, she finds a key to the entire personality, and that, I think, the great secret of her success.
Irena had announced she would teach anybody, and indeed she did teach anybody, and taught them in the most extraordinary sort of way. It wasn't that she turned every student who walked into her studio into a genius, into a brilliant pianist, into a great virtuoso. Her greatest gift was the capacity to bring forth from anyone that she taught what they had to say, what they wished to express from within themselves that was theirs alone. Each student sounded completely like himself or herself, and each student seemed to reach deep within. There was something about Irena's capacity to open people up to themselves, to an expressiveness that often they didn't even realize they possessed. So that meant that hearing her students was always a most engaging and fascinating experience, because not only was it musically satisfying, but in terms of the humanity, the individuality of each student came forth through the music. Quite extraordinary. That was, I think, the unique gift that Irena had and still has as a teacher, to allow each student to find what is particularly theirs that they would like to say through the music. It was magical, absolutely magical.
My name is David Herman. I'm 12 years old, and I've been studying with Irena since I was 7. She's really a nice teacher. She's kind and she's creative. She doesn't only focus on the music that's written on the page, but she tells stories about the composers and how to interpret the music. The lessons are really interesting, and she makes the music fun and easy to learn. I'm just really glad that I have Irena as a teacher.
Well, Irena is a great teacher and also as a person, which is mainly, I think, why she is so popular among her students, which includes me, of course.
What makes Irena so different from a lot of other piano teachers is that she's very, very inspiring, and she has a very, very good personality. She's funny, she's very, very good at explaining things, and I think she challenges me really, really well.
Irena is just a very unique person. She can make all of her students grow in so many ways, in their personality, in how they react to different things. Of course, their playing, it all affects that. When you work on a piece with Irena, she can really make you feel the music, almost see it, like you're reading a book. And Irena is just a very special person.
Irena knows how to communicate to me, and she gives me the right pictures for each piece I play. So I know exactly what each composer wants, and she communicates it in a very simple way so I can understand. And she explains the pieces in stories so that I will be able to project the composer's mind into the piece that I am playing. And she explains it to me as though the composer was standing in front of me and telling me exactly what he wants me to do.
I love her because she is so unique. I mean, when you're in class and when she's giving a lesson, you just feel, you don't realize she's your teacher. You just feel like she's your friend talking to you and suggesting what to do. And if you disagree with her, you can just tell her and she can tell you what her opinion about the piece, and she's just great.
I think she's really special because she understands her students and makes piano learning interesting. And she has a great imagination, so whenever I'm learning a new piece, she turns it into a story instead of just a plain bunch of music or notes.
My most memorable moment with Irena was a year ago during my first interview with her. I had always seen Irena and all her excellent students in many recitals, and it had become my wish and my greatest goal to become part of her studio of students. So I came to an interview with her and I played 2 Bach symphonias, and when I finished, she said, "Well, we'll have time to improve them." And at that moment I was so happy. I hugged her. I realized that she had accepted me as her student, and I was so happy. I just couldn't believe it. That moment started a beautiful relationship between me and Irena.
I started studying with Irena when I was 10 years old, and it was very difficult at the beginning because I was used to playing Chopin, but I didn't really have the fingers for it, so I had to start with the basics with Czerny etudes and Bach inventions, and I was also very frustrated because everybody in her studio sounded so good, and I, at that point, didn't. And since then, since those first few months where I had to build my fingers, then it's gotten much easier. And what's really great about studying with Irena is that she always makes sure that you understand the music that you're playing, which I think is pretty unique, that you have to understand maybe the story behind it, or just the context of every note. You can't get away with not knowing what you're playing.
Irena is an extraordinary woman. Both my children take with her, and it's truly been a gift to our family. The love she brings to them, both in their life and their love of music, has completely translated to them at such a level that I can't even begin to comprehend, because they're only 6 and 8. But they seem to have internalized so much of the beauty of music because of how she loves them, presents, teaches, and really makes them feel the music. Their technique and the way they play the piano and the way they even approach the piano is extraordinary. And I cannot believe that she has been able to make such a young child understand the proper way to make a beautiful sound, and for them to also hear the sound and then to also interpret the music.
Irena has reminded me before of the time when, during one of our first lessons, I was looking off into the abstract painting she had, and that I basically told her that I was looking for a hole to get inside the picture, and from there I could explore in the painting.
He said it's so interesting I am looking at the picture, I find a little hole, I enter, and then I walk there, and it's so interesting. For me, it was a revelation because I thought, my God, that's what I do with my students. Because I find a little hole that I can enter. And then I walk there, and I think that's why everything's working. Because I walk inside of them.
One of the many unusual features about Irena is her intuition. It's really scary intuition because her mind is like an X-ray machine which sees the inside of people.
There was a time when I really didn't know Irena very much, but one day I happened to see Irena in the hallway of the school. And when she saw me, Irena stopped me and said, "Darling, I think you are in love." And she was really, really right. And how did she know? I don't know, but somehow she has a very strong instinct and sometimes almost psychic.
Trust is the most important thing, and trust is a mutual thing. They trust me and I trust them. And that's how it starts and that's how it continues through years and sometimes through the whole life.
First time I met Irena, it was a very, very strange experience. Everybody has said so much about her. Everybody was saying she's the best, the only teacher you can ever go to. And then I met her, I met this tiny chain-smoking woman, and I was intimidated and scared, and I fell in love, and at the same moment I wanted to grow up to be just like her.
Very soon after Irena's debut as a teacher, many people learned about her extraordinary ability to have insight into the souls of her students and to create a relationship based on trust. Irena's students saw in her teaching much more than mere instruction on how to play the piano. They grew not just as professional musicians, but also as human beings. In each student, Irena discovered, developed, and released creative forces.
In the morning, the hen decided to try to fly. Raise the...
At that time, she may not have realized herself that this creativity is so powerful and universal that it affects not only one's musical talent, but also one's whole personality as well.
That's great.
Creativity helped Irena's students not only to play better, but also to overcome psychological difficulties, improve relationships with others, and obtain harmony in their souls. So what happened later was probably meant to happen.
Then I understood that I kind of invented music therapy, because whatever I did started to work very slowly. I was very proud of myself. Really, it was at 70 and nobody in Soviet Union heard about music therapy. When I realized that music works, I tried to help other kids with different programs. It was Down syndrome. It was stuttering. It was, you name it, schizophrenia. Everything, hysteria, everything. I worked with a group of people who had stuttering, and after 4 sessions, the stuttering just stopped. Actually, it was funny because I played with them. We did a competition, who stuttering more, they or me or one of them. So after those sessions, they stopped stuttering. I started.
When, after 10 years of active work as a piano teacher and a music therapist, Irena moved to Israel, she began working in a Jerusalem psychiatric hospital.
Doctor who hired me came to to the first session and wanted to see how I can do that. So my first session with patients where I somehow explained to them that I don't know Hebrew. And I told them, you're also not very talkative, right? You don't like to talk. So we will do the following. I will ask you a question playing piano. You will guess what question is and answer me by drawing. It was a very interesting conversation. The doctor who hired me was convinced that I can do that. And that's how my music therapy in Jerusalem started and lasted until I left Jerusalem.
While listening to Irena, I could not think of anyone else who would be able to do what this little woman was doing, helping people with psychological disorders, building the bridges to reach the distant minds, finding a ray of light in tangled personalities, and becoming a friend for those who had lost hope that they could ever be understood by anyone, even their closest relatives. She did all this while being a foreigner, employing the only tools she had, music and love.
I had many different patients, and in 1 year I knew Hebrew pretty good. So they called a conference for all psychiatrists in Israel. And I was supposed to have a report about my work. I asked to bring a person on the wheelchair. She was probably 90 years or more. She had only one phrase in her repertoire. The phrase was, Ich will essen. That meant, I want to eat. And that's all she could say. So I started to work with her in front of the whole audience. I started to play a song, Russian folk song, that because the person was from Russia, this patient, a song that everybody in Russia knows. And suddenly she sat straight, started to sing this song to the horror of everyone in the audience. And after that, I started to ask her questions. How are you feeling? And she said, how could I feel? I'm so old, I'm so sick. And my kids never come to see me. And she talked about 3-4 minutes and then started again, Ich will essen. So it was a very interesting demonstration what music and music therapy can do. I think that my American success started with me meeting Ralitsa.
When I met Irena in 1991, I was quite unprepared for the personality that I was going to meet. She was not the kind of piano teacher I was used to meeting. She was very untraditional in the way she appeared. My father still remembers that she wore a miniskirt, which was a complete taboo in Bulgaria. And she was smoking a pipe, which was another unexpected visual experience. But all of that was quite incomparable to the experience that I received being taught by Irena, because she was quite untraditional also in the way she taught me, because she considered me almost as an equal of hers. She didn't try to put me on my place as a student and tell me what to do. She was actually trying to draw things out of me and make me play in a way that seemed convincing to me as well as to her. And that was quite a new aspect to me as a performer, and that was actually what made me choose the profession of a performer.
And it ended that we really raised the amount of money that we needed. And Tralica came and started to study at Peabody Conservatory of Music with Professor Julian Martin. And all the weekends, all holidays, all vacation time, she lived in this apartment with us. So me and Henry, we were constantly listening to her, advising her, working with her, and sort of continued to teach her. It lasted 6 years, I believe. All the time that she studied at Peabody and doing bachelor and master. Then, I don't know, God helped us. We met Eliso Versaladze. And we asked Eliso Versaladze to listen to Ralica's playing, and she, thanks God, loved her. And said that she will accept her in Hochschule in Munich, where she works.
I know Irena's students. One of her students, my favorite student, Verletza Pachua, she now lives in Washington. She studied with me, and what Irena gave her, it is the very essence of her personality, her nature. And even when I wanted to open up something more, it always felt like it had been so wonderfully developed by Irena that you cannot change the way she is and the direction she is going. I do not have any intention to forcefully change the nature of my students. I believe this is in me, my guiding principle, to open one's personality without pressure. That's why, let's say my students are completely different. I am positive, knowing another student of Irena's, who is so much the opposite of Verletza, that of course she follows the individual qualities of her students. But to be capable of opening and developing the individual qualities of all the students, and to make it the way that they keep loving the music, this is very hard. It is like everything is connected.
This is really the way Irena teaches. She teaches people. She doesn't just teach people to do certain things. She teaches people to express themselves, to draw inspiration from what they're doing, but to get this inspiration out of their own systems. And this is something that I find absolutely unimitable in her teaching, in her approach to life, in her approach to people.
Okay, so what we have? We have Shostakovich, we have Mozart, we have Couperin, right? So I know that it's challenging, but I want you to work on toccata and on concerto ensemble.
Yay!
Yeah, you like this idea. Where is concerto?
У нее такая любовь к этой профессии, именно к педагогической, да?
She loves her profession. She loves being a teacher, and she loves her students so much that without dominating herself, she opens musical gifts in each of them. It is a big art to discover a student's capacity and to develop it maximally. I think this is the most valuable teaching gift.
While observing Irena's lessons, I recalled the mother of one of her students who exclaimed, "I wish I had her as a teacher when I was a child." I can say the same. Being Irena's student must be very exciting, especially if you, like Mariana Olizola, are working on the third piano concerto by Beethoven. First, you have to learn it well. You study it with Irena, then practice on your own, then bring it to Irena again. At a certain moment you start to work on it with Ralitsa, who plays the orchestra part. And, of course, it's very exciting, not just for you, but for your parents and friends as well, when you play it with a real orchestra. It's not surprising that many of Irena's students choose to become professional musicians. Irena has established contacts with prominent musicians such as Elisodra Saladze, Julian Martin, and Santiago Rodriguez. To them, she passes the torch, and they continue to teach Irena's former students.
Irena Orlov is a very special person for many different reasons. Not only is she a wonderful person and a delight to know, but Irena is also one of the icons of the Washington, D.C. area as far as teaching, because she has had such great success with her students. Year after year, she turns out some of the best students we have heard here in this area. And the combination of her personality and the passion that she has for what she does, it's things that we can all learn from, and I find myself constantly learning from Irena and getting emotionally involved with her work and with her students. She has sent me quite a few students that I have accepted into my class, and I'm very happy with them. And they all bring the same sort of passion for music and passion for different facets of life, and that I find that doesn't come from every student that comes to me. That usually comes from Irena's students. Irena's infectious, and that is a great compliment to her and to her life, that she can infect everybody with this beauty that she has in her and this passion for what she does. And sometimes we all need to be reminded of that. So I'm very happy to be her friend in many ways.
There are many wonderful teachers in the world, but there are very, very few like Irena who know how to create an environment that brings out the very, very best in all of their students. A few years ago, I asked Irena if I could watch her teach for a few hours. I had been so impressed by all of the students that I'd heard of her.
Now, that is the beauty. You have 3 against 4. What does it mean? Now you're playing left. 1 with the same timing on 1. No, when you're practicing, right? So you practice separate hands, right? With the same counting. And then you just play it by ear, and that will be perfect. Yeah.
I'm all...
Oh, okay. Okay. Now I have to give something to the wheel.
I think I know what it is. The Stundin Forte.
It's not
It's
forte,
Sforza-
it's
Sforzando.
forzando. So,
Sforzando,
what
right.
the composer doesn't want you to do is what you would do if sforzando wouldn't be there. You would do...
And drown out this note?
Yeah, this is second voice, you understand. Right? So, if not sforzando, you would do...
Right. Oh, and bang the first note.
Not bang, but...
But do it a little like
Yeah.
more flowing.
Yeah, nodding, right?
Right.
Now we have to decide, you and me, because I don't know why he wanted sforzando on the 3rd beat. I have no idea. Do you have any guess?
To surprise people?
It's very Haydn-like. He liked to surprise. Yeah, you know. So, try to play this role. Relax. It's not you. It's not 12 years old David. It's, let's say, not 82. It's too scary. Let's say 42. I'm trying to remember something. Feel this interval like a long interval. When it was. That was that. And our past we never remember clearly, right? It always has some flair. It always have some, it was awful, or it was so great, right? But we remember not exactly how it was, but our feelings, right? So that's what I wanted.
And so I watched and I was amazed at how she used humor and stories to cajole and to coax the very best out of her students.
Yeah, that's the problem, because you concentrate on melody in the right hand, and Beethoven says, listen guys, that's what is important for me, and I build this. Only when you're ready. Now, this break could be a little bit small.
I learned a great deal that day, and I think I and my students have been very grateful to her ever since. I heard her that day ask one student to sight read through the entire Bach Well-Tempered Clavier. I had never heard a request like that made of a student. To dare the student, really, to achieve far more than that student thought he was capable of. Another student she asked to learn the entire School of Velocity of Czerny. So what I saw was that I had been very cautious and sort of micromanaging in my teaching, and she was not that at all. She's really created an extraordinary environment, like a rainforest, in which all of her students, like the species in a rainforest, thrive and learn to be all that they can be. She, I believe, is one of the very finest teachers in the world, and it's my privilege and pleasure to know her.
Представь себе, бумажный.
Just imagine a cockroach made of paper. It's the middle of the night and everyone is asleep. The cockroach suddenly opens his eyes like this and becomes alive. And he is very surprised. How come? I was made of paper and now I can move. You see? This is like, what is happening with me?
She breaks every rule in the book. You know, she may teach to play a scale one way to one student and teach it a different way to another student, but it works. So how are you going to argue with success?
Irena does not have any rules. I think she teaches and she studies herself at the same time. To be constantly learning for your entire life is a big gift. Very few people are capable of this. In music, to know something and to be sure that it's the only this way and not that, this is a very narrow approach. But if you are open, if you are ready to learn something new, then you understand that you have been studying music yourself, so you cannot say that this should be done only this way. Because if you think you know everything in music, how everything should be done, then I think it's time to retire.
Sometimes Irena challenges her students by saying that the given piece which the students wants to play is too hard to him. And she tries to convince him that it's really very hard and he wouldn't succeed with it. The student, whipped up with this assertion, goes home and tries to prove otherwise and works on this piece and brings it to the class next visit. Sometimes instead of giving the students assignments and choose repertoires for them, she asks the student what he or she wants to play, and the student makes its own choice and brings the piece to the class to work on it. So the individual initiative and individual taste and choice are most important factors in this interactions between the students and the teacher.
Irena is irresistible because first the passion that she has for what she does, but Irena is also a very disciplined person when it comes to teaching. And so I think that the kids feel that as well as the adults feel that, and those qualities are what make her so special, because she can combine the human side and be very personable, but then she can be very strict and she can be very precise about what she wants out of a student. She just won't tolerate mediocrity, and I think that's one of the great things about her, is that this is not a person who wants to be a friend only. This is a person who wants to teach you how to do something very well. And I think everybody, whether you're a child or whether you're an adult, you're going to feel that passion. You're going to feel that need, that pressure upon you to excel and be better, because she herself is always pushing you to be better. And yet at the same time, she does it in a sort of way that you want to sacrifice for her. The student wants to practice for her. You know, there are other students who don't want to practice for their teachers because basically they dislike the teacher. But Irena is so likable. That's the first quality. But she's likable because she is also disciplined, and that combination is what has made her such a success.
One of the things I really took from being a student of Irena was sort of learning to express myself comfortably and to be comfortable with my own creativity. And this generally came from our earlier sessions where at the beginning of our lesson she'd just let me sit there and play whatever I felt like playing on the piano. And you know, it gave me total creative license for 10 minutes or so, and she'd sit there and watch. And, you know, over time I got a lot more comfortable. Initially I might have been a little more reserved, but I certainly came to enjoy those, you know, 5-10 minutes of just playing in front of her, you know, and being creative. And even though today I'm not like a professional musician, as a lot of her students have gone on to become, I still love music, and I play the guitar as a hobby. And even today, feeling comfortable with my own creativity is something that is really valuable that I took from those lessons with Irena.
Irena's ability to be surprised, to be amazed by life, to maintain constant joy of life, is what drives her. She is a child herself.
I think the amazing thing about Irena is not just her skills as a piano teacher, but as a friend and a colleague and just a person in our lives growing up. I know that I've had a lot of interesting conversations with her about, for example, her theory on allergies and how they develop. And I think one thing that's really interesting about her is she has some kind of background, I think, in theater and also in psychology, because she understands people so well. And those are the exact things that I'm most interested in now, music, theater, and psychology. And I'm sure that those interests are in significant part from Irena's influence on me. I also think that my creativity has definitely been as an influence from Irena. Like, I am now a composer, music director, in addition to being a pianist and a singer and an actor. And I think a lot of those areas of interest came about because of my interactions with Irena.
People are always trying to find a teacher in their life. They're always trying to find a person that would have answers to all of their life's questions. My life is very, very lucky because I have found that teacher at a very young age. Irena has been the most extraordinary human being that has played, I think, the biggest role in my life. She is so complete in herself, she's so comfortable with being who she is, that she's able to absorb life and to be able to be a real teacher, in the old sense of the word, to all of us.
I remember when I started with Irena 3 years ago, she gave me the first piece from Tchaikovsky's Album for the Young. I really liked it, and I played it for the next lesson, and she asked me if I wanted to play all 24 pieces in the book. And I did, and I ended up playing it for the recital at the end of the year. And since then, I've played a huge series of pieces every recital.
I first heard the Bach Prelude and Fugue in C minor in a movie, and I thought, oh my gosh, that sounds impossible. But then I told Irena that I wanted to play it, and she said, it will be hard, but you can learn it, just learn it one measure a day. And then, after 56 days, I finally learned it, and I was really, really happy that I had learned it.
When I think of Irena, just hundreds and hundreds of memories and stories come to my mind. But the one I would like to tell you now is one I recall every time I play a waltz. It happened to me about 4 years ago. I was 8 years old and I was learning my first waltz. I tried my best to learn the notes at home, but when I arrived at my class and played my piece for Irena, she interrupted me saying, "Let's waltz." So we spent the next about half an hour waltzing around the room and just having a blast. And guess who was leading?
There was a time when I was struggling with my interest in piano and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to continue because I didn't like practicing, I didn't like doing the same pieces over and over. And so instead of saying, you have to practice, like most teachers would have, I think, Irena instead said, okay, that's fine. So what we're going to do is every other lesson, we had 2 lessons a week, so once a week, we'll spend the entire lesson just sight reading. And I remember we spent hours and hours sight reading many of Haydn's symphonies, I think some of Mozart's as well. And that got my interest going because I loved getting to know new music. And so that actually kept my interest in piano through that rough time. And then eventually I got over the hump and started liking it on my own. And I'm still playing today, now as a junior in college. And I think that without that understanding on her part, I might have never continued.
When I started studying with Irena, I was 15 years old and I had just come from Bulgaria to the United States.
And I had always dreamed of playing the organ. I had heard some things about the harpsichord, so I was very curious about those instruments. And I mentioned this to Irena also because in the lesson she would very often say, well, that's how something would sound if played on the harpsichord, like let's say when we were discussing how to play Bach, or that's how something would sound played on the organ. So she was very involved, not only teaching me to play the piano, but actually developing my musical views and my musical personality. And so when I mentioned this to her, she said, well, why don't you go and study some harpsichord and organ? And not only she said that, she actually found me the teachers who taught me. And I studied with Lois Narvi at the Levin School, where I was studying with Irena. I was studying harpsichord with Lois. And a friend of Irena's was an organ player and an organ teacher, Harvey Van Buren, and she put me in touch with him. And on top of everything, she financially supported me in those efforts, because at that point my family had just came to the States, and you know, that was quite an extravagant entertainment, you know, not only to have twice a week piano and chamber music and theory, but also to study two other completely different instruments, organ and harpsichord. And so Irena has participated in my musical development not only as my guidance and not only as my teacher and close friend and supporter. She has actually supported me in the very straightforward sense of this word, in the financial sense, in any moment when this presented a difficulty for my musical development, and she was always there to help with that.
I have known Irena and her husband Henry for many years, and I am always amazed at the kind of perfect ensemble that exists in their family. They are two musicians. They are two wise people who know a lot about the human soul. They have different approaches to the human character, but the way they work together and the unity that they achieve as a duo is really part of the magic of Irena's school. Irena and Henry are so much together that it is impossible to imagine Irena without Henry and Henry without Irena. Each of them has traveled a long journey to find the other, and they came together to form a family filled with absolute harmony. They live for each other. They can talk about anything, and they hear each other. Actually, they often hear each other without saying a word. Their love and tremendous mutual respect form the basis of their relationship, which in turn attracts many different people with different cultural backgrounds. It is a great pleasure to be in their company. One of the most influential Russian musicologists, the author of fundamental books on various aspects of music, Dr. Henry Arlov, is a great supporter of Irena's discoveries in music pedagogy.
Irena Orlov is one of the great teachers working with young children in America today, but I believe that she was always great, even 50 years ago when she began as a young girl of 15 and knew this was her vocation, to be a teacher. And I think the secret was that she knew all along that she was fascinated by human beings and the different types of human beings, all different human beings there, the way they think, the way they learn, the way you can appeal to their imagination. And music was the means by which she helped them become even the people they wanted to be, not just the musicians they became.
What I have realized during these years is that everything that seemed so easy to do, everything that I experienced as a student of hers, and it was so enjoyable to experience it, and so hence I assumed it's very easy to do, turns out to be an incredibly difficult process that requires enormous amounts of patience, and moreover it requires enormous amounts of creativity.
I have experienced in the past that whenever I bring an issue or concern or problems, she will always have an answer. And to me, she's like a medicine woman in the middle age.
Within the institution, she's particularly revered here because of her extraordinarily generous spirit. Her students, of course, and their great performances set a standard for all of us as teachers. But she herself sets a standard as a colleague because she's so kind, so generous to us. She will answer any pedagogical question we have. And isn't it an extraordinary thing that we can enter her studio at any time and we can observe her teach on any day we want? Her door is always open. And when we go to observe her teach, we are the beneficiaries because we come out having learned so much and having been inspired because she is such a joyful and passionate, imaginative teacher. We are very honored and we are very happy to have Irena Orlov at Levine School.
The most amazing thing about Irena is that she lives in the moment and she teaches everything from her own experience. The most important thing that she taught me is to live in today with no regrets about yesterday and no real hopes for tomorrow. You live in now, you enjoy the now, and the now becomes that much longer. And it's not only a lesson about life, it's also a lesson about piano practicing, because you practice thinking about nothing else. You'll learn to concentrate so much that you memorize everything so much faster. It's amazing. That was an incredible thing to teach, and she knows from her own experience. That's how she lives. And I thank her for that.
I wish I could get on a plane with my little daughter and bring her to Irena, into this enormous rainforest in which, as Brian Ganz has said, all of Irena's students thrive and learn to be all that they can be. I hope that my little one will learn to be all she can be. She has time. She is 3.5 now. And if this opportunity does not present itself, perhaps she will be inspired by this film, the portrait of one of the most gifted, unique, and creative human beings.